So many motor mounts, so little time. Stick around. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the garage, and today we are talking about big block motor mounts because I have multiple sets of motor mounts floating around. The big thing to know, and I've talked about this in earlier videos, is the frame side mounts. These are different, specifically, you know, for X body, F body, stuff like that. Probably the same for A body. They used at least 2, if not 3 different styles. The ones that are in there now actually move the motor forward 1 inch and a little bit lower. The old ones, hold on a second here. You're swinging. The old ones were a little bit more to the driver's side also. So the new ones actually move you over to the passenger side to give you clearance on the headers. The big thing whenever you're doing this that you want to measure is the width of the mount. So let me grab one of these nasty bastards out here. You want to measure this width right here. This is the big thing that changes over multiple years. These are the small block mounts. This is what is called a short wide mount, and it is 2 5/8. Now, a lot of the big block mounts, instead of the small block mounts, go to what is called a narrow tall mount. Here's an example of the Jegs mount right here, and this is 2 3/8 as opposed to 2 5/8, and it's also set off the block further. And what I've got on there right now are the Morosos, and they're the solid mounts. And I'll tell you what, those worked, but I had to put spacers on those, and it's not because they weren't tall enough. Now, the other ones are too short specifically for the stroker. The oil pan was hitting the cross member, so I had to go over to a taller mount. That's whenever I found out that, hey, the original mounts that I had from Energy the original Energy suspension mounts that I had, even though these are listed for a big block, were short wide mounts, and so they were too wide for the actual mount. And then on top of it, as I said, the oil pan was touching it. The funny thing about this is, and I don't know if you're going to be able to see this, this is the Jegs mount, tall, narrow, right there on the mount, Energy suspension. So this mount, even though it is a Jegs branded, and it is GM urethane motor mounts, early tall style, tall style there, and then it's a 61801, still made by Energy, so that's cool. I don't know that they're any cheaper. They're about 40 bucks a pop. So let me grab one other one. This is a Napa replacement factory mount for a 69 Camaro big block. And this one has the interlock on it, like you see. But once again, even though this is for a big block, 69 Camaro big block, this is a short wide mount, so it will not work on our setup. Now, I know that the motor mounts or the frame mounts are the correct mounts in this situation. There's really, for the Novas, there's only 2 to go with the small block and the big block. There's not multiple big block ones on the later XG and stuff like that. But I wanted to do a short video to save some of you guys who are doing big block swaps on some of this stuff to measure the width, order the frame mounts first for your generation, for your year, for a big block swap, if you're going to go that route, which I suggest you do if you want to clear the steering box and things like that, because moving the motor over 1 inch makes a big difference. Order those frame mounts, measure those frame mounts, and you'll find out if it's a 2 5/8, which is the wide one, or a 2 3/8, which is the narrow. You can't interchange them. Obviously, you can't get the 2 3/8 on a 5/8, but the 5/8 one is too wide, and it'll bend the ears in, and you'll have all kinds of geometry issues. It will mess other things up. You want to get the correct mounts for the correct frame mounts. So what I'm going to do now is try these new Jegs narrow talls, and comparing them to the Morosos that's on the block right now, they're very close. They're a little bit off, and I think that the little bit that is off will actually allow me to use these without having the spacer in there. On the Morosos, I had to put a 1/4 inch spacer in there. It was tall enough, but the passenger side bolt hole wasn't getting there. I couldn't get the motor worked in any way in which to get that one to line up. So I'm gonna swap these over real quick, and then we'll test fit the big block in, and on top of it, we have our Wilwood manual disc brake master cylinder with proportioning valve. I called the guys at Wilwood, told them the brakes that I was running, said, hey, what size bore do I need on this? I think the other one was 1 inch. They had me measure my pedal and stuff like that and said, well, you'll have to put the rod in the top hole as opposed to the bottom hole because that's for power, brakes, things like that. But if you do that, with your measurements, you want a 15/16 with our master cylinder. So those guys are super helpful, and it only took 10 minutes to get through to them on the phone. But I'm gonna swap these out real quick, and then let's see if we can get this thing sitting in on the frame mounts. Okay, we got the new mounts in here, and they're gonna work. I think my hardware needs to be up one size, but the pan is up off of the cross member. Both sides are in. Well, that's the right size hardware. This one over there is too small. Maybe I put the wrong bolt in. Nonetheless, we're in. So, yeah. Remember, measure the frame mounts. That's what I'm going to tell you. If you're doing this, it'll save you so much headache, save you so many problems. Okay, so the motor's test fitted. We've got the headers coming in here tomorrow, I believe. I got a set of headers used off a Camaro, same generation Camaro for a big block. It's the same primary size as what I was gonna run 2 1/8 anyways. I'm gonna put these headers on and see if they clear. They're kicked up in the right places. They may work as is, but if not, I'm gonna use them kind of as a template to see where I need to make adjustments whenever I build the custom set out. So fingers crossed. It'd be nice if they'd work because I'd like to just go ahead and throw the transmission on this thing. I got a new Hughes torque converter with a 3500 RPM stall on it, and it's got a, it's got the built internals for running nitrous and stuff like that for whatever we, help me out, guys. I'm drawing a blank. Anti-ballooning plate. It's got the anti-ballooning plate, all that stuff on there, so if we do end up putting nitrous on here or something, we should be good to go there. And then, of course, we've already got a 1200 horsepower power glide that we're attaching to this thing. We will be running the Energy urethane transmission mount. I've got the big block mount because the location's a little bit different. Hopefully the crossmember works, but if not, we will modify the transmission crossmember to get everything lined up. Said right now, the big thing's gonna be getting those headers to fit in. Once the headers fit in, man, the motor is gonna be pretty much done. I've got alternator mounted with ICT. We're running a Messier pump. I've got to go ahead and finish mounting up our power steering pump, which will actually mount up kind of over in this area whenever it's all said and done. It's an ICT billet bracket also, as usual, so I'm not going to do that right now, obviously, because the motor's going to have to come back out. Got the brakes done. The interior, if you follow me on Instagram, you would have seen that the interior has had all the wiring removed from it. Now, originally we were going to go with a power distribution module. Money is just not there for that right now. We need to buy race car parts. That is a need, not a want. And so we will be doing a painless harness. We're still gonna try and utilize back shell connectors, but the problem with this car is there's not that much firewall. So everywhere that you see over here, we will be putting the new heater core in with the big block that moves the inlet ports over to this side so we can still have heat and defrost. I do live in the Northeast, and I don't want to, get fogged up windows. So there's not any room in here to run one. What we may end up doing is coming through the wall here, the inside wall, and then we'll come up through the fender and bring our harnesses up that way, route them that way, and they'll be somewhat out of sight. But the big thing being is I've got to be able to get to the connectors wherever they're at, so I can unhook them to pull the motor out. The idea behind going to a cannon plug or a bulkhead connector is I could come in here, unhook 3 or 4 connectors, just lay the harness over the motor and pull the whole motor out in, you know, it'd be a 20-minute job as opposed to having to unhook every single connector on the motor, things like that. We'll get into that more in the coming days because that's the next big thing on the list, getting the wiring ready to go. And what we'll end up doing is we'll run a permanent harness up front for the headlights, turn signals, stuff like that. Anything motor related, the fuse box will be kind of in the factory location. Anything motor related, we'll have a connector over there for sure. We've got plenty of room for connectors on that side. And then I was planning on mounting the Terminator inside. And so what we'll probably end up doing, as I said, once I get the fender back on, I want to get an idea of where I could run it through, somewhere maybe in the fender well, keep everything nice and simple. So, but next big thing, headers. That motor's so big, I don't see how headers are ever going to fit, especially with that steering box there. Keep your fingers crossed. But for now, I'm going to get back to it. You guys know the drill. Thanks for stopping by the garage. ABT, always be tuning.